fought in a war, and I left my friends behind me to go looking for the enemy, and it wasn't very long.
And thanks for tuning in. Today we're interviewing Laura Theobald from the University of Tampa. She is the Roberston Prize winner for poetry for her poem There Was a War. She is the editor of Quilt at the University of Tampa, and she's a senior. Is that right? You're a senior?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So say hi, Laura, and what do you want to say?
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for selecting me as your prize winner. I'm so honored and excited.
Cool. Okay, so let me turn up the volume here. Okay, so would you mind reading? Well, first of all, we'd love to hear your prize-winning poem, but if you have any other poems that maybe contributed to, like maybe if it's a part of a series or if it's all part of like a larger work, we would love to hear that. So first, read us your prize-winning piece, and then maybe we can talk about other poems later.
Sure. So the poem that you selected is it didn't have a title when I submitted it, but it has a title now. So it's called What to Do If You Survive. And I'll just go ahead and read it.
Great.
There was a war. The names changed, the borders, the sounds of words. So instead of toes, it was snows or sometimes hills, which made me think of my body as a landscape, which made me forget to eat. We travel with shovels. After, there is always digging to be done. He's walking beside me. He stops me and says, "You've gotten so thin," and reaches into my pocket for a cigarette. What you don't do is speak. If I say I'm trying to remember, he will hear "don't bathe," which isn't actually what I mean this time. What you can do is drink whiskey. In war, it's metaphor for making love. You can drink whiskey until you can't walk, and there's a slow, steady burn, and October doesn't fool you anymore with its version of winter.
That was really beautiful. So there are a couple of things going on with this poem that I have some questions about. There seems to be kind of a disconnect between what the speaker is experiencing and what is actually being understood in the poem or what's actually being communicated in the poem. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I think maybe what you're talking about is something that my current poetry professor would call the rhetorical structure of the poem. It's kind of and to me that means that the language in the poem is saying something that the words maybe aren't saying so formally or so outright or bluntly. So, but maybe the words do kind of say it. Like maybe the first thing, "There was a war," kind of speaks to, well, obviously about a metaphorical or we're using real analogies, like in war, borders change, languages change. There are similarities that I'm trying to draw there. Is that your dog?
Yeah, it's totally my dog. Sorry. There are going to be intermittent dogs here. So, why was that choice made to structure the poem in that way? Like, what do you feel made you arrive at that decision?
That's a good question. It's hard to say if that was actually a decision that I made consciously, or if it's kind of something that happened. I was really influenced by this play by Briel called Translations, which takes place in Ireland after the English have gone there, and they're this team is there trying to rename certain territories, give them English names, and kind of take away the old Gaelic names that they had, and I thought that was a wonderful piece of writing, so that maybe it kind of stuck with me in subconscious ways, and maybe I kind of use that as a way to talk about things, because one of my poetry professors said to me recently, well, Laura, you talk about love a lot, and that's, it's something you can be really cliche about, and it seems like it's very easy to become the cliche romantic poet,
Right.
So how do you talk about things in a way that's not cliche, that's different, that says something new, uh, you know?
Yeah.
So trying to figure that out.
Yeah, and I think that this move toward exploring how things are named and how that name can change in a traumatic experience like a war resonates with the reader. I think that this poem in particular, even though it's not explicitly about something romantic per se, there is something that yearns in the poem, like maybe a little bit in the subtext, and just really allows the reader to inhabit this sensual space. But there's something really kind of confusing going on. And can you talk a little bit about that? Like, I don't mean that disparagingly at all. Like, I feel like there's a great mystery about this poem that it takes a couple of reads to access, really. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I mean, certainly I'm a confused person. So
Aren't we all
that
at this stage, right?
yeah, I mean, how often do you go into writing a poem knowing exactly what it is you want to say and exactly how you feel and exactly how you want to express that? I mean, would that even make for a good poem? Is that something people want to hear?
Right.
I don't think so. I try to learn things about myself when I write a poem. I want it to be an act of self-discovery. To be cliche. Uh, so yeah, that
There's
confusion
any
is there because I don't know. Because I'm confused. I don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually don't think that there's anything really cliche about that at all. I think that right now, especially, it's about establishing a voice, and it's about because I think we all really kind of are starting to explore and really experiment with our voice and what that really means for us as writers. And you know, it feels like a choice sometimes. It feels like if you go experimental, like you have to be experimental all the time. And if you go, another way, if you go like narrative, then you
Or
have to be narrative all
or
the time. Right. And I just think that you are kind of discovering a lot of things about your voice and your aesthetic that, you're making these kind of decisions about, like, this is what I want to write. And I just feel like your work has taken an enormous leap since you came to the last boldface. You were at the last boldface, correct?
this year, this past summer.
Yeah. So I just feel like your work is changing, and can you maybe talk about like how your work has changed?
It's constantly changing. It's a constant process. I mean, I feel like um the poems that I brought to Boldface and that I was working on during that period were was something that represented where I was at that period, and like the work I'm writing now is totally different, and not even like it's like I feel like that the work that I brought to Boldface maybe kind of has its own category, whereas the work I'm working on now is kind of all over the place and
Yeah.
have that same voice to it. Um, but I like that, and I'm okay with that because it represents where I was at that time, and I was trying something new, and I'm glad that I did, and it was fun, and I liked it.
Yeah.
But it's a constant process, like you're saying, of trying to discover that voice and occasionally breaking out of it and going in new directions and exploring those things. And I don't want to become pigeonholed. Like I don't want to have a certain way of doing things that's like oh, that's her way.
Right.
I don't want to be that person. I want to find my voice and be distinct in my voice, but um not be like that poet.